thinking people in this group that we're talking about now, they won't fight with you about what you've said. But again, as always, there's another side of the coin. What they say is, why should we vote for the ANC? Corruption. It's all over the place. They say the president is the symbol of corruption. Shabir Sheikh, you know, I mean, I can go on and on and on. So what would you say to
let's
this?
Be clear first.
How do you...
Let's be clearly first. The loudest voices on that subject have never voted for the ANC. They never voted for the ANC at the time Madiba was a leader, yet today they want to claim even Madiba. So let's be honest about this subject.
No, I hear what you say.
Right.
I hear what you say, but would you at least admit that
we'll come
there is
to
a problem?
the argument. You know, you say no. The problem I have is the way you phrased your question. People in the thinking group. There must be a fundamental integrity to your political position for me to take it really seriously if you're pitching the debate at that level. So the first point I want to make is, have they crossed the bridge and say you really want to build a truly united South Africa, understanding that it means you must deal with these fault lines and yawning chasms at times, and what bold political action and programs it needs to be able to achieve that. But let's come back to your point. I think I'm not aware of any country that's going through a aggressive, rapid transition process that has not faced this challenge of corruption.
Okay, let's put it this way. Sorry, I'm interrupting you now. It's not about that it's happening. It's about the political will to stop it and to make sure. Dina Pula, for instance, you know, the way she was handled was.
What was wrong with the way she handled it? The only problem you see, you guys want things to happen overnight. And the ANC, we always say, the ANC is an elephant. We move slowly, but when we turn quite decisively. And Dina Pule is a case in point, where she was removed from the cabinet. It might not have been as fast as you would have liked it, but she was removed from the cabinet. The steps within the parliamentary rules that were possible was taken as far as it could. There are further investigations underway with the public protector. There may even be criminal investigations. So let those processes take its course. There's no interference in that particular process. I mean, within the ANC, I mean, if you look at our policy documents, our discussion documents, even the Mangaung ones, you'll see that the issue of corruption is acknowledged as a serious, cancerous, potentially fatal issue for the country and for the movement, as we call it. I think the president gave a report the other day about the number of cases where actions have been taken, the 1,500 officials dismissed, and a whole range of action. I know in our province, in the Premier's office, we have an integrity unit that coordinates this entire effort. In my own department, just recently, we've dismissed people. We've got the assets forfeiture unit to seize assets for more than 70 million rand. You can't want to live in a constitutional state and say that nobody must undermine the constitutionalism that we have, yet expect a response that requires powers outside the Constitution. You see, I've spoken to people, very progressive people, who in their anger on this subject, when I say, should we declare a state of emergency and allow anybody suspected of corruption to be detained without trial and without bail until the case is heard? And in his anger, he said yes, but it was a short-sighted view. If you declare an emergency for that, would it not be very easy to declare an emergency for any other purpose? I'm thinking long-term in terms of protecting our constitutionalism. So the actions within the constitutional state, and yes, there are gaps in the capacity of the state to investigate and process things and use the kinds of technology that is available, but it's happening. And now of course, the appointments that have been made with regard to both the National, NDP, National Prosecutions Director, I think it's called, and the head of the Assets Forfeiture Unit should bring some stability and new focus in that regard. I mean, I know people are skeptical, but the Arms Deal Commission is on. Let's see what that brings. It's an open process. People are free to bring their evidence to it. There are legal representatives representing various kinds of interest groups there. I mean, they are quite skilled in bringing out issues that need to be aired. So there's a lot that's being done. I mean, is it enough? Probably it'll never be enough because we want to stamp out corruption totally. But I think, I mean, I see it. I serve on the Provincial Executive Committee of the ANC. One of the subcommittees we have is a Legislature and Governance subcommittee, and I chair that subcommittee. And one of the things we've been looking at quietly behind the scenes is the performance of our municipalities, how we close the gaps on supply chain management, how we close the opportunity for corruption, as you would put it. And the whole supply chain management system is a key issue there. And I think you've heard that the National Treasury has just appointed a procurement officers. All these things are attempts to put in place systemic controls or systematic controls to contain and mitigate the risk that we have.
I hear what you say, and again, I'm playing devil's advocate. When you talk to people in that group that we're talking about now, they will say it's too little, too late. Yes, it's praiseworthy that it is being done, but it's too little, too late. And let's just go back to something else, also other part of the coin. Let's go to the president. No matter how one looks at it, and even when one realizes that some of these things are, let's say, blown up in the press, the fact of the matter is there is a problem with the president's image. Nkandla. The arms, the whole arms procurement thing. And then the perception that he is, I won't say manipulating, but that he is managing the rule of law process to keep him out of court, to avoid going to...
But he doesn't control access to the courts. It's anybody's free to approach the courts, as parties have.
Ravi, but I mean, in all fairness, I mean, when you're president, if you have the right people in the right positions, you can not manipulate, you can manage the process.
No. But you see, I mean, everybody agrees that our constitutional court is quite exemplary.
Yes, that's
and our judicial system generally. Yes, there's at the lower levels there might be some need to improve and sharpen and capacitate. But there are legal processes underway. Let's say, for example, the DA's application to, in fact, they want a review of the decision not to prosecute him, right? And that part is in process. Part of that is the release of the so-called spy tapes.
Okay, let me just interrupt you there. I'm sorry to do this. Right at the beginning of this interview, you mentioned that you adhere, or the ANC and people adhere to court decisions. Now, why has those tapes not been released as, as...
But everybody has a right to appeal. Well, I mean, that's where it is.
Yes, fine, but I mean, would you agree that this adds to the perception that there's something wrong?
No, but you can't have a set of rules that says, I think it's a critical point of principle. In fact, it was also tested partly in another case, where you say a law allows you provision to make representations which will be confidential in order to enable the decision maker to make a decision on a fully informed basis as possible. And then you do that, and they take the representations, and now you want the confidentiality of the representations suddenly to be removed. I mean, to me, that's quite a fundamental principle that's at stake here. I'm not commenting on the broader issue, but the legal process and our constitutionalism provides for that. And I think in the McMaraj versus Mail and Guardian issue, that's the principle that was at stake, as I understand it. And it seems to me that the Mail and Guardian conceded that you're unlikely to win on that because that's a fairly rationally based principle. So that's a principle that's at stake, and why should it be then not watered down, but why should that principle suddenly be waived because you have a political interest in it being waived?
Yes, but now look, I'm not a legal expert. I know a little bit about the law, but why? I ask myself, why make this so difficult? Why make it so complicated? Why just not do and go through the? If there's nothing to hide, just do what is asked, and surely then there shouldn't be a problem.
If you have a matter which is as serious as this, and you have legal representation, and you act according to your legal advice, wouldn't you? I don't know how this matter is, but if I'm saying that I had a matter which had legal implications, and I take legal advice, and I act in accordance with the best legal advice, and they advise to go this route, I would go that route. It's if you have to go back to the fundamentals of that particular case. I mean, what are the two fundamental issues there, as I understand it? There was a letter allegedly signed by the president at the time that he was then deputy president.
Okay.
But I think on the issue of some of the investigations into the arms deal, I think it was a parliamentary investigation. But it's common cause now. Yes, he signed the letter in his capacity as deputy president and leader of government business, but the letter was actually written and drafted by the then president. If you then had to go to some of the other fundamentals, I think it's common cause that yes, money from Shabir Sheikh funded certain things. Was there a quid pro quo? I don't see any evidence of a quid pro quo. There's never been any direct evidence to say that. Okay, you give me this and I'll give you that. Even if you look at the conclusions of the original trial, it was a so-called generally corrupt relationship, but this was a vis-a-vis Shabir Sheikh. And any lawyer with half a brain will say to you that the fact that Shabir Sheikh is guilty doesn't mean that the other party is guilty.
No. But I mean, let's accept that. But isn't it an embarrassment to some extent that Shabir Sheikh is supposed to have been terminally ill? He is now getting better by the day. And I mean, surely 2 and 2 will always be 4. This guy could never have been that ill. He was released on I mean, that is the logical conclusion. He was released for other reasons.
Well, he's sitting in a pretty confined life, the way I see it. It can't be very pleasant
But he should have been in jail.
living in a virtually under house arrest. I mean, who am I to dispute the medical reports that were submitted on his behalf? I haven't seen any. I mean, you've seen pictures of him in chair commenting on certain things, but there hasn't been any evidence to say he's not ill. He himself says that he's got chronic hypertension and would have to be on medication for the rest of his life.
But surely he should have been in jail.
He went to jail. I mean,
no, he should be there now.
No, but if the medical report supported a parole and that was survived any legal interrogation.
Yeah, but isn't that the point? That there's something was manipulated somewhere.
No, but if the medical report's backing him, and parties were free, and I think parties did challenge it, and it survived that interrogation. So influence. I think there's a difference between someone supporting something from an influence point of view versus illegal manipulation. I think there is a definite difference there. But I mean, Shabir Sheikh is not my favorite person. And I would think that he had huge amounts of assets confiscated. He's had his freedom taken away, and I can't think that the life he's living now would be very nice.
Let's go to Nkandla.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody like you. I mean, I've known you for quite a number of years. A man of integrity. You're a good lawyer, legal mind. We've just listened to you now, how you, how your reasoning works. Now in Nkandla, the whole situation around that. Could that not have been handled differently?
No, clearly it should have been handled differently.
Okay, now what should have, how should it have been?
Well, there should have been stricter control and monitoring of what was happening there. Obviously, we don't have the full report, but the Deputy Minister of Public Works, Jeremy Cronin, has given a clear indication that the procurement processes were seriously compromised, that you probably overpaid double, if not treble, and that kind of thing. What we don't know yet, what we don't know yet is a full report of the extent of the content of the spend. In other words, what was the money spent on? Now, if the money was spent as is implied, and I think it's a bit unfair to the President in the way that propaganda is going. If it's true, it's another matter. But where it's implied, if it was spent on improving, 200 million rand was spent on the President's house, for me it will be a problem. But if, as I understand it, it was the security component, the police compound, the bunkers for whatever they are, the fencing, whatever they are, and all the other aspects. And some of it actually won't be. I mean, the police compound, as I understand it, might not necessarily be part of the President's personal compound, because that will become a public asset and a part of the Ngunyama Trust land, but effectively be part of the public asset register. But we don't have that report yet, and you're unable to make an evaluation there because there are rules. There are rules as to what.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you again. You say there are rules, but the security factor, the perception is also that the security factor is being used to hide the cost from the public.
No, but the report must indicate that. Okay, I'm sure there's review processes, the public protector. Nobody I think will question the integrity of the public protector. Her report is awaited. Let's see what comes of it. And of course, there must be consequences for wrongdoing. And I'm quite clear in my mind that is what should happen in the interests of good governance. But it's hardly, so far, I haven't seen any evidence of saying it's a massive expenditure to advance the luxury and personal pomp of the President. It hasn't come out from the information that I've seen and read. Let's wait and see.
Yeah, but that's what we're talking about, is the perception about that.
Well, but you generate your perception, and in the absence of the accurate information, I am unable to, refute and repudiate it totally. But I think I'm still objective enough to say you need to wait for those reports to come out.
Wouldn't it have helped for the President to sit in a chair like you do, and a newsman like me from the SABC or whoever said, "Mr. President, Nkandla, now tell us your side of the story"?
Politicians, politicians have strengths and weaknesses. I mean, and would like to communicate in the way that they best think they can communicate. I mean, there are many presidents who didn't deal with the issues that way. And if the one thing about our president, I think he tends to let things roll and then at the appropriate time, make a declaration or make a dramatic action that deals with the matter. But in as much those I appreciate where you're coming from a perception point of view, but equally, you must also look at his strengths. Okay. I mean, no interviewer has ever said, let's talk about his strengths first before he talks about his weaknesses. So let's start with his weaknesses and then let's go to his strengths.
But the problem seems to get him into an interview situation.
No. I mean, you're talking to me, you talk to others, you interview others. Millions of words are written in articles. Yeah. Where's the balance? Okay. I mean, his strengths in terms of his strategic thinking, his strength and commitment, clear commitment to the basic unity of South Africa and the principles of the Freedom Charter, his ability to build consensus. Many people, and maybe middle-class people in particular, want to see a more vocal, maybe sophisticatedly articulate president. And I think he'd be the first to say that maybe that's not his strength. But if you go to this girl, DA youth leader, who made this statement in an interview that she had, and she says she thinks that when the president speaks in the vernacular, he's very persuasive. Now, I think you get my drift, that it may be that difficulty of articulating, especially to the Indian coloured and white middle classes in particular, that where the problem is. But in terms of his strategic sense, I mean, you guys should be the ones, not you guys, I'm being unfair to you, but the same middle classes, I think, were terrified of Julius Malema, give him no credit for the way he was dealt with.
Why then? Look, I've listened to you, and as a good politician, you've done very, very well. But now, why is it then that somebody like Mampela Rampele, Vavi, even Julius, they say certain things that tend to underscore the perceptions that other people have? I mean, surely these things can't be plucked out of the air. There should be some substance to this.
Yeah. Your problem is that you think the things that are said by people outside the ANC are not said and debated within the ANC.
But outside you don't see.
Yeah, in fact, they debated far more vigorously, I think, within the ANC. Maybe that's our fault. We have this particular collective culture. And it's debatable whether it's still appropriate for a 21st century democratic state with technology being what it is. But it has its strengths. And that collective internal democratic culture requires us to raise all our issues, which we do within the movement, and to refrain from what you call advancing a personality cult. What you are looking for is somebody, even you would ask of me, to constantly be visibly and publicly an anti-corruption campaigner. That will make you feel good. No. Then you'll say that's visible evidence. But I'm saying, look at the actions that we have taken, and in my case, in my own department, that I've taken to do that. And that should speak more than a populist anti-corruption approach.
Ravi, thank you very, very much. Thanks from eHouseit and your willingness to take part in this interview. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jan. Pleasure.